Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Multi-Voice Entertainment. I am the Multi-Voice Reviewer. I have many voices, but one opinion. And yeah, I know, I got myself a haircut. I don't know why, I just like having this kind of haircut. And, after my review of Stargate, I decided to review a TV show, another sci-fi franchise that you all been waiting for. One thing I would say, I mean, you know me, I love Guardians of the Galaxy, and Star-Lord's always been my number one favorite guy. I mean, he's my favorite Marvel superhero. But ever since I heard about the Christmas special and Volume 3 coming out soon in theaters, I just can't wait. I just can't wait for it to come out. So I wanted to watch something that could pretty much gives me my fix for Guardians of the Galaxy. So therefore, I came across a TV show where some people do say it's a lot like Guardians of the Galaxy, which is Farscape. Now, what can you say about Farscape? Actually, what can you say about Farscape? It's a lot like Guardians of the Galaxy. And how the story goes, here I'll tell you. The series started back in, it lasted for 4 seasons, started in 1999 and ended in 2003. So it lasts longer than Firefly? Hmm, imagine that. Now, let's get to the story, shall we? What's it all about? We have John Crichton, played by Ben Browder. Now, John Crichton's character, he's a little bit like Star-Lord, but he doesn't play music and dances like Star-Lord does. But he does make a lot of pop cultural reference, just like Star-Lord. Like he gives characters nicknames that he meets, and always likes to talk about other sci-fi franchise like Star Trek and Star Wars. And he started out as an astronaut. He went up into space and therefore he discovered a wormhole. Huh, that premise sounds a little similar to Planet of the Apes. But unlike Planet of the Apes, Crichton didn't go into the future. Crichton went to an alternate universe where there was a war between a group of fugitive aliens against a evil group of aliens who calls themselves the Peacekeepers. Now, one thing I gotta say about the Peacekeepers, they're the ones who looks normal. I mean, they look like Earthlings, but they are definitely aliens. And why they call themselves Peacekeepers, if somebody is called a Peacekeeper, that means they're supposed to be friendly, peaceful people, but they're not. They're warmongering conquerors. And he ends up into the ship called the Moya. And what was in the ship, he meets this big, broody, tough alien who goes by the name of K. Dargo, played by Anthony Simcoe. Now, Dargo, at first, he gets all rough with John, but he starts to realize that he's not a peacekeeper. And throughout the series, he becomes his best friend. So pretty much, Dargo is like the Chewbacca to John's Han Solo. My gosh, I'm making a Star Wars reference. Alright, alright, Dargo is like the Spock to John's Crichton. To John's Kirk, Yeah, that's better. or the or Dargo is Tilk to Crichton's O'Neill. Or in a recent way, John Crichton and Dargo are like Star-Lord and Drax the Destroyer. And of course, also on the ship is this big blue bald alien who's supposed to be a spiritualist until in the later series they discovered that she is a human plant. And she's not like Groot. She doesn't go around saying, I am Groot. Oh no. Her name is Paru Zatu Zan, played by Virginia Hay. Now, one thing I heard about that actress, Virginia Hay, throughout the entire scene, she always shaved her head to be in the blue makeup, kind of like, pretty much a lot like what Karen Guinness did in Guardians of the Galaxy. She shaved her head so she can play Nebula. And of course, there is this Yoda-like guy, but he's nothing like Yoda. His name is Rigel. Rigel the 14th. Voiced by Jonathan Hardy. Now, unlike Yoda, Rigel here, he always acts like he's a royalty, like he belongs to be treated like a king, like he's part of the royal family. But he's a thief. He steals things, he cheats people out of their deals, and he's kind of perverted. He even likes to hit on women, see if they can sleep with him. But he becomes the comic relief throughout the show that John Crichton always keeps hitting, strangling, grabbing. And every time when he's fallen and he asks for Rigel to help, and Rigel, he misses his leg and goes like, oops, sorry. And you hear Crichton yelling, Rigel, you bastard! And one thing, he discovers that the ship itself is alive, Moya, and he sees a pilot. And this is the pilot of the ship, which he's just called a pilot. He communicates with Maya, so he's pretty much connected to the ship. While at the same time, he meets the Peacekeeping's captain, who is at first I thought he was going to be the main bad guy, but he was the main bad guy in the first and second season. And the captain is Captain Baylor Crace. So Captain Crace started out as the bad guy in the story. And he wanted to kill John Crichton because his brother fired his laser on John Crichton's rocket ship, but it sort of backfired and it hit his brother's ship and crashed. But it was all an accident. But he doesn't take accidents pretty well. He was so wanted to kill John Crichton over the death of his brother. So he doesn't take accidents pretty well. And believe it or not, the actor who played the captain does the voice of the pilot. Played by Lenny John Tupu. That's his name. Lenny John Tupu. He must be Hawaiian. Yeah. Well, at the same time, there was a peacekeeper officer who shows up, almost killed Crichton until he starts figuring out that this peacekeeper is a woman and became their prisoner until she started liking Crichton and also starts falling in love with Crichton, and Crichton starts falling in love with her. Her name is Aaron Sun, played by Clayda Black. And then throughout the rest of the series, they meet another alien who was a prisoner but now becomes a member of their crew, named Shatana, played by the lovely Gigi Egley. Now, I really do like Shatana because Out of all the female aliens in this show, Chitana is pretty hot. I mean, she's a very, very hot female alien I have ever seen. But of course, Dagar kind of fancies her, while Crichton fancies Aaron. And then in the later series, all of a sudden, there's another Peacekeeper bad guy who shows up, and he is fascinated with Crichton. Now, Captain Crace, unlike Captain Crace, who wants to kill John Crichton over his brother's death by an accident, this bad guy is fascinated with Crichton's way of creating the black hole, and he wants to use Crichton so he can use this black hole as a weapon. And his name is Scorpius, played by Wayne Pilgrim. And of course, Scorpius, he started scanning Crichton's head, that now Crichton has like some kind of imaginary friend who looks a lot like Scorpius, but his name is Harvey, who always keeps showing up inside of Crichton. I mean, even one time he even showed up in Crichton's head, seeing him wearing a tuxedo, and he grabs him by the throat and say, "That's my dad's tux, take it off!" And of course, he hates it when he realized in his head he has a cigarette in his mouth, and Harvey got a cigarette in his mouth, and he said, "No smoking in my head!" And of course, they did a cop interrogation world where he found a cigarette in his mouth, and he was starting to light a lighter, and he said, "What I told you about smoking in my head!" I mean, there's a lot of funny things in the show, and believe it or not, one thing about these aliens in the show, most of the aliens are people with makeup and also prosthetics and rubber tentacles, but the small aliens like Rigel and the big aliens like Pilot, they are created by the Jim Henson Company. I kid you not. Most of the aliens in the show are all created by the Jim Henson Company. And also, if you want to know what studio who made the series, well, it's not Disney, that's for damn sure. Because if it did, it would have been on Disney Plus. But it was from Hallmark Entertainment. I kid you not. I kid you not. It's Hallmark. Now, that's one thing I really have to say about Hallmark. Like I said before, Hallmarks, they make a pretty damn good mystery. And when they do fantasy, they do a pretty good job on fantasy. Like I reviewed that Hallmark special of Merlin. And I do enjoy the Hallmark murder mysteries they've done. But when it comes to drama, they're more like Lifetime, and I hate Lifetime dramas. And Hallmark, when they do their dramas, it's a lot like Lifetime, so I can't stand them. And for those of you who wants to know why I don't like Lifetime dramas, they get overly dramatic that it just fills me with hatred. I mean, some of them are based from actual event, but they get overly dramatic. It pisses me off. I get so pissed off by Lifetime. And of course, one of them told me that they have happy endings. Well, it doesn't make me happy. It just makes me more pissed. That's why I'll never review Lifetime dramas. Because I freaking hate them. Now I finally got that out of the way. And sorry for getting... It's just every time when I think of Lifetime, I get really pissed off. And every time when somebody I know is watching a Lifetime movie, I just get all... just really angry. And you don't like me when I'm angry. Sometimes my rage can be like the Hulk. I can destroy. And then around season 2, and then later on, they start meeting this really odd guy who has like this piece of a mask where it's covering this side of his face, kind of like the Phantom of the Opera, except it doesn't have an eye hole on it. His name is Stark. No, 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 not the Iron Man Tony Stark. I meant Stark, played by Paul Galder. Now, throughout the series, Stark, he starts connecting himself with Zan, the spiritual blue girl, until in season 3, Zan dies. They killed off her, and he feels miserable about it, and hoping that he would find her and bring her back, but it's too late. She's gone. And I think it's because the actress who played Zan, she wasn't feeling any good behind the scenes, and when she went to the hospital, started they started noticing that her body was getting, it was, I mean, I guess some of the makeup got into her body and it made her really sick. She can be in makeup long enough, but not 24/7. So that's why she had to leave the show, because the makeup was killing her behind the scenes. So, and then all of a sudden, they come across another same alien species as Dargo, who turns out to be Dargo's son, who is part peacekeeper, part same alien species, is what Dargo is. And his son is called Ka Jothi, played by Matthew Newton in the second throughout this in the second season and third. Now, he was happy to get his son back, but one thing he didn't like, it turns out that Shitana, I mean Shiana, kind of cheated on Dargo with her son, and he was so pissed about it that he wanted his son to leave. So, sadly, he left. Well, that's what happens if a son betrays his father for sleeping with his girlfriend. The show itself, the rating is TV 14, so it gears towards teenagers, so it's not meant for kids. It's more on a teenage level, 14. So it's more like PG 13 in our standards. But anyway, they found this other alien girl who kind of looks kind of weird, even though she kind of makes me think of a character from uh, Hellraiser, but not disturbingly. But she's a very interesting alien. She has this sonic scream that every time she screams, metal melts. It's like her scream can bring out a heat wave that it makes any kind of metal material melt. And her name is Julius Julius Cole. Jewish 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 played by Tammy McKenzie. Comanche. Sometimes I have a hard time trying to pronounce her name, so. But she became a new member of the group to replace Zen, and she becomes very helpful since her scream can melt metal. So she's very valuable to the team. And then in the later series in the third season, they come across an old lady who turns out she's an alien witch and always know how to make potions and other things. She goes by the name of Utu Noranti Prolatong, Polatong, played by Melissa Jaffer. Now, her character, with her third eye, she can sense things. She can manipulate people by turning herself into a young, beautiful woman to distract them. I mean, she's a very odd one, very a big oddball, but she is very smart and knows what to do in certain situations. Until they have to leave Julashku to another planet and meet another girl who goes by the name of Zinkazu. Zinkazu, played by Riley Hill. Now, Zinkazu sounds like I'm saying Pikachu. Now, she is a really different woman. She is bilingual, so she can understand other aliens' language, and she pretty much defies the law of gravity. She can walk on walls and even on the ceiling. And Crichton met her in the fourth season. And of course, it turns out that Scorpius starts getting backstabbed in the fourth season because now two new villains starts taking over the Peacekeepers. So now Scorpius is stuck with Crichton and his team. So he's pretty much a prisoner to them, even though Shikazu, she starts getting along with Scorpius. So it's kind of hard to believe. You don't even know if she's going to be good or bad or what, but she does act like that her legions lies with Scorpius. While the two noon baddies starts taking over, and the two new baddies is Kamanik Milaan Greza, played by Rebecca Riggs. Now, one thing about her, she wants to take over the Peacekeepers and forget about the wormhole project that Scorpius was trying to work on, and just want to kill Crichton. Along with the help of Captain Miklu Braca, played by David Franklin. And of course, one thing about the show I always find so funny is that throughout the show, they always made up a cuss word throughout the show. I mean, unlike Firefly, who always speaks Mandarin, so every time when they cuss or swears, they always speak Mandarin. So they always cussing and swearing in Mandarin. And on that other show, one of my favorite science fiction comedy, Red Dwarf, they didn't make up this word, but they always say smeg in that show. So pretty much in this show, the made up curse word they made is, of course, frel. I mean, they say, what the frel is going on here? What the frailing hell? I mean, what the frailing is this? And then in a later series, they start meeting another group of aliens that are way worse than the Peacekeepers, which they are called the Krorans. Now, the Krorans, they're like dinosaur-like aliens, but they have this super ability of bringing heat wave to people, so they can kill people by giving them a really bad case of the heat stroke with their hands. And they're like 10 times worse than the Peacekeepers. And unlike the Peacekeepers, they themselves are fascinated about the wormhole, so they pretty much imprison Scorpius, so they want to know what he knows about the wormhole. And they also try to kidnap Aaron because she is pregnant with John Crichton's baby. And then throughout the whole series, Crichton finally. Oh, yeah. On season 4, episode 13, Crichton finally went back to Earth. He reunited with his father and his family, and his alien friends showed up, showing them the technology and what they can do and their way of life and everything. I mean, everybody is not being all paranoid or anything, even though they are a little paranoid because of 9/11. But with the technology that these aliens have, they decided to share it with the world so everybody else can defend themselves and know how to deal with it if they come across that technology. Because that's what Crichton wants. And after that, it turns out that the Peacekeepers sent an assassin alien to go find John and try to kill him and his family. They already killed two of his best friends, and then they almost got to his family until Dagar found it and blew it to smithereens. So now John decided to go back into space because even though he reunited with his ex-girlfriend, it just doesn't feel the same. It just doesn't feel right because he's been in space for so long that he doesn't want to stay home anymore. He wants to go back into space. And of course, he still loves Aaron. So he finally went back into space. And then all of a sudden they ended up in a water planet and they got on a rowboat. And this is what John Crichton did. He asked Aaron to marry him. And she said yes. He was so happy and excited until bad freaking timing! Because a ship showed up and blasted Crichton and Aaron together. Turned into little crystals that everybody think that they're dead. And then it says to be continued in the end, and that's when the series was canceled. Because it was the final episode of the 4th season. And that's when the series have canceled because of the ratings. But all is not gone, ladies and gentlemen, because there were a lot of die-hard fans, including yours truly, wanted to know what happened after it. So, in 2004, they decided to do a 2-part miniseries called Farscape: The Peacekeeper Wars. It picks up where it left off. There's an ongoing battle between the Peacekeepers and the Scarans. And of course, Ryan finally was in labor, popped the baby out. John and Aaron finally got married. And then he gave Scorpius what he wanted. He opened up the weapon of the wormhole. And he told the Peacekeepers and the Scarans that wormhole is the weapon. And what it would do, it would destroy anything in its path. And I do mean everything. And if they want to end this, they should put aside their difference and start creating peace. So Crichton got back in the machine and stopped the wormhole. So therefore, peace was finally made between the Scarans and the Peacekeepers. Oh yeah, and they also met another alien species where they look human, but they have these lines on their faces, and shows that they're not really aliens. Turns out the other side of the face splits open and their forehead opens. They have 5 eyes inside their heads. And they are peace loving people who wants peace. So they were there to see the Scarans and the Peacekeepers finally made an agreement to stop having wars and try to stop being conquerors and try to bring peace in the galaxy. And that was history in the making. The war was over. No more conquering, no more torturing, no more interrogation, just peace. And Crichton named his son Dagar Crichton because his friend Dagar died in battle. But his last words before he died was, "Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy?" That is a greatest line to say before you go down fighting. Who's your daddy? And that was the series of Farscape. Now, I don't know about you, but after watching the entire series of Farscape, it pretty much satisfied my fix over Guardians of the Galaxy. And of course, they made a video game, which is a PC game. And of course, there's a lot of die-hard fans who wanted more Farscape. So, Boom Comics decided to do a comic book series of Farscape. You can get the Omnibus series. There's volume 1 and 2 of it. And one thing I would say, the series of Farscape, it was funny, it was weird, but not as weird as it was funny, it was weird, a little awkward, but not as bad as the Lex. Yeah, I'm mentioning this. I do enjoy adult sci-fi comedy, but the Lex I don't like because I've seen the series and it just made me feel very uncomfortable because it is uncomfortable. There was even uncomfortable humor in a homosexual kind of way. So I really didn't like the Lex. It was too weird and too uncomfortable for me to enjoy. Hell, I rather enjoy Tripping the Riff better because at least this one's heterosexual and it has a lot of reference of other science fiction franchises parody. I can endure. I can endure Tripping the Riff than the Lex. But that's just me. But anyway, Farscape was the biggest inspiration that pretty much inspired our favorite director, James Gunn, to make my personal favorite, Guardians of the Galaxy. And that is my review for today. So, what do you think, little Groot? I am Groot. What do you mean it's not as good as Guardians of the Galaxy? I am Groot. So what? John Crichton doesn't dance on music like Star-Lord does, but at least he was a good character. I am Groot. Everybody's a critic, you know? It's ridiculous. And I guess that's the reason why after Farscape, 2 of the cast members from Farscape appeared in Stargate SG-1. And of course, it was really funny. On Stargate SG-1, Zala, played by the same actress who played Aaron, told a movie director a premise, a sci-fi premise, and you see the Farscape reference on Stargate. I mean, if you ever watch if you ever watch Stargate, you can see that reference or see the clip on YouTube. And if you ever want to see the show, it's available on all channels except Disney Plus and HBO Max and other channels. But it is available on Tubi, Amazon Prime, Freevee, um, YouTube because you can watch it without ad. I mean, you can watch it ads free, and also the Plex and Peacock and other channels I can't keep track of what Farscape is free to watch. So this is my review for the day. If any of you like my review of Farscape, please leave a comment down below, hit like and subscribe. And as for me, I'm afraid I'm going to be in a bit of a hiatus because the Wi-Fi's been acting pretty slow. So I'm hoping that this time I might come back and make more reviews. So I'm the multi-voice reviewer. I remember so I can jog your memory.